Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's session of Scriptdoll Office Hours, where we are here to nerd out and talk about all things that relate to copywriting, improving our copy, any which way that we can, and really talking about little ways that we could get better at selling things online. And in this week's topic, we are going to do just that. And as you can see on the screen, this week we're going to be talking about how to infiltrate the mind of your target audience and trigger their desire to buy. So I am going to hand the presentation screen over to Kayla McDonald, and she is going to start, and we're going to rock out with getting people, or the fundamentals, or the foundation, I should say, of our copy and getting that desire to get people to press that buy button. So take it away, Kayla.
Cool. Hey guys, Kayla here, and obviously you guys already heard a little bit from Debbie, so she's right. This week we're going to do some fundamentals and some foundation for your copy. We're going to learn how to kind of get acquainted with our audience and figuring out what buttons to push, and this is actually going to tie in with a blueprint. This is my personal blueprint that I've done for all my clients in the past, for Ben's copy that I use to do all my research and get to know the audience before I begin writing a thing. And then we're going to jump in and show you guys how to actually answer some questions and bring that into sales copy. So this is going to flow, and we are going to kind of jump into Scriptdoll a little bit today. If you're not already a Scriptdoll user, do not worry. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff that you should know, and there's going to be a lot of beneficial stuff in here for you. Whether or not you're a Scriptdoll user, it's a little bit easier if you have Scriptdoll, obviously, because you'll be familiar with the profile system. If you haven't used Scriptdoll yet, this is going to be a really great starting point for you guys to learn how to actually improve the profiles that you're creating. And yeah, so I'm excited. So I guess we'll just kind of dive in and get started. So the big thing that you need to know is what pushes their buttons. And for those of you that joined us several weeks ago, we talked a lot about emotional selling and getting to know your customers on a deeper level. So there's going to be a little bit of crossover with that session. If you guys were not on that session, I very much recommend going back and watching the replay of it, because there was a lot of fundamental information there that's going to help you even more do the stuff that we're going to present today. But even if you haven't seen it already, you're still going to see a lot of good stuff, so no worries. So I've got this cute little cartoon in here, and basically what we're trying to talk about is you need to know the specific problem that your audience is having, and specifically how it affects your lives. And if you've got a product, a generalized issue that you create is not always going to be enough. You have to get very specific and know exactly how it affects their lives. And when you have those specifics, it's going to push people to actually take action a lot more than if it's just this kind of generalized thing that they may or may not think they care about. When you actually show them that there's a severe problem they're having, and in the ways it negatively impacts their lives, they're going to be a lot more apt to actually take action and buy your product. And today we're going to show you the questions that you need to ask before you ever write copy to get to know your audience and how to push those buttons and uncover what they are in the first place. So for example, let's say you've got, I'm always with the dog examples, Debbie? I'm always, just because I'm a crazy dog person, I guess. So let's say you've adopted a new dog and the barking is out of control. You're not sure what to do. And let's say you're selling a product that's going to help these people prevent their dog from barking so much. Now, just simply addressing the issue of barking too much, obviously that's the main problem that they're having, but what we're going to dive into and the things that we want to kind of identify is in what ways does the main problem affect them specifically. So if a dog's barking a lot, is it disrupting their sleep? Is it disrupting the neighbors? Is it causing a lot of tension in the house because people aren't sleeping? Is the couple maybe arguing about keeping the dog or not because of this issue? Think about all of the domino effects and all the snowball effects that are happening as a result of this main issue, and those are the things that we want to be attacking, because when you get to know those problems a little bit better, And when you identify them to your audience, they're going to be a lot more receptive to your message because it's going to feel to them like you have a very good understanding of their problem. And as a result of knowing their problem so well, you're obviously going to be well equipped to give them a great solution that's actually going to work for them. So that's what we're covering today. That's a little overview. So we're going to jump right in, and this is my actual blueprint, like I said, that's going to get you acquainted with your audience, and it's going to get you asking the right questions to get to know them. Essentially what we're going to be building is, if you guys have ever heard the term of a customer avatar, and that's going to help you get to know your audience a little bit better as well. So let's dive into that. So step one is getting to know who your audience is, and a lot of these questions are going to seem very basic. But it's not always that simple. It's stuff where it seems like common sense when you think about it, but a lot of people don't think to ask these questions about their audience, which is why we've got it all spelled out this way. So these are the types of questions that you want to think about. If you're finding, and I've run into this a lot, especially when I was doing freelance, I would have a lot of clients who would basically tell me, I would ask them these questions, and they would give me way too many answers. Well, I want to target men and women, and I want to target newbies, rookies, and everybody in between, and I want to target the whole world, And so if you're finding that your answers to a lot of these questions are very broad, I would really encourage you to narrow it down. It's very easy to get into the line of thinking that the more people that you target, the more money you're going to make. What actually happens is, by not being specific enough for a target market, you're not really relating to anybody, so nobody feels like the problem is really great for them. So it's actually much better to narrow it down and not make it too broad, because you're going to attract people a lot easier that way. So step one is all of our foundation questions to getting to know your audience. A lot of these questions are just, like I said, helping you better identify the problem, what specific problems are happening as a domino result, and that's also going to help shape your language as well as you get to know them. So especially when it becomes, for example, their experience level. And let's say you have, let's get away from the dog thing for a moment. Let's say you have a weight loss product, and there's a big difference between someone who is very experienced at the gym. They already know all the equipment and everything else, and they're already at their goal weight. They're gonna respond to very different things than somebody who's just looking up the motivation to get to the gym in the first place. And the types of things that are going to relate to those different markets are going to be very different. So this is going to help you really tailor your language and tailor how to better relate to the specific market that you're going after. So like I said, a lot of these questions are very specific. Some of them are demographic questions, so age, gender, experience level, all that kind of stuff. And then what is their specific end goal? What is the person trying to actually achieve? And presumably their specific end goal should be the solution that your product offers. Another thing to consider as well is what's actually stopping them from reaching their goals. And these are all the domino effects that I'm talking about. So let's say you're targeting somebody who is just starting, they've got some weight loss goals or some health goals. What is stopping them from actually getting to the gym? It's not necessarily laziness. Maybe they do have kids. You've identified that they do have kids, and maybe they're having trouble getting childcare, and they don't actually have the time to get to a gym because they have to be taking care of their kids. Maybe they have a full-time job. What outside issues is actually stopping them from getting to the gym? And these are again, the domino effects that we want to consider, and that's what question 3 is trying to dig in a little bit. And then number 4 is, how does the problem affect them? So if I'm trying to get to the gym, and it's not the obvious problem of, okay, well, that person isn't losing weight. How else does that affect them? If they're not going to the gym, they're not exercising, maybe they're suffering from low energy levels. Low energy levels are affecting their productivity at work, and their productivity at work is really poor, and now they're having problems with their boss, and if they're having problems with their boss, now their morale at work is low. These are all the things that you want to be thinking about going forward. And again, like I said before, by identifying these issues, you're actually going to relate better to your customer. They're going to feel a lot closer to you, and they're going to learn to trust you because you have a very good grasp on what they're suffering with right now. So that's number 4. Number 5, you want to consider what things they've done themselves.
Hey, Kayla.
Yeah.
Just gonna chime in here for a sec.
Yeah.
For number 4, um, would you think like to get down to the answers to this particular question, would you like for me, what I would do is probably I would just like brain dump like 20 different things that I would think, is the problem that affects my target audience, and then like picking maybe like the top 5. Is that a good way to kind of go about doing that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Sorry, I kind of got rambling there. No, definitely that is a great way to do it. I find for me, like when I'm actually filling this stuff out, I have a notebook and I have a pen. I don't have any fancy software. This is fancy because I have to make it look good for you guys, but this is not at all what my actual research would look like. I'm writing it out, and like you said, Debbie, I would just everything that comes to mind, I'm just writing it out, writing it out, writing it out, every little thing, because everything you write out is then going to spark a new idea and it's going to help you dig that much deeper. And then when you've done that, you've got that list, which is probably going to look pretty messy if you're anything like me. Um, Once you have that list, then go through and narrow down the top things that are going to affect your market. So yeah, definitely that's a really good way to go about it, Debbie.
Cool.
Uh, Sorry?
Cool, I said.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm just talking a lot today. I'm on a roll here, so you're gonna have to stop me.
Wow, you're doing great.
Um, cool. So, and then number 5. So the next thing is how have they tried to solve the problem themselves? What action have they tried to take? So that person trying to go to the gym who has kids and doesn't have time, have they already tried to look for daycare? And what's the problem with them trying to find daycare? Is it too expensive? Is there just not enough providers in their local area? Um, and this is all as like I'm sure you guys, and I really hope you're starting to see how this all kind of comes together and how these questions are all very related to each other. It's all a domino effect, and these questions are very much designed to get your thought process rolling. So definitely that's why I strongly encourage you to just brain dump on a piece of paper, whatever way you feel comfortable doing it. Just do a brain dump and let your mind run with all these different ideas, and then you're going to make it neat. We're going to show you how to make it neat at the end. This is totally the brainstorming phase of getting acquainted with your audience. So number 5, how they've tried to solve the problem themselves, and then number 6 is what would their life be like if the problem was solved. So this is going to kind of reflect back to their end goal. What does their life look like? Is now that they are going to the gym and they have better energy levels and they're getting a lot of things done at work and they're getting along with their boss again, describe their life. And it's not, even if some of the information doesn't actually make it into your copy, it's very good to get yourself in this mindset and really put yourself into the customer's shoes, because it's going to get your language adapted to what they're going to respond to. And it's going to help you relate to them better. And like I said, it's just these questions are designed to get you snowballing off of your own ideas as well. So don't be afraid to reach and really dive into what your customer is experiencing, and it's going to help you identify those huge triggers that are going to get them to take action on your copy. Do you have any questions after all that, Debbie? I know I kind of went off there, so
No, no, I think it's great too. But because, like, if you do know all these answers, these are always things that you can kind of bring up in conversation. If you're doing like a presentation like we're doing today, like all the things that you've written down from the very beginning, they're all going to be kind of in your arsenal of
yeah,
things that you can always talk about. So you're not just talking about, those 5 major problems. So the more you know, the better off that you're going to ultimately be.
right, yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, let's move on to step number 2. Are you guys hearing me okay? I'm getting some comments that it's going silent. Is it good on your end, Debbie?
No, I've been fine on my end.
Cool. All right. I got a little MacGyver set up right now because I'm not at home. So, all right. So, going into step 2. So, step 2 is our next set of questions, and these ones are focused on you and your experience, the things that you've gone through, your struggles, what's gotten you to where you are. And our main goal with this, and this is the line of thinking that I want you guys to be in by the time you get to this set of the questions, is what makes you just like your target audience, because they're looking to hear from someone who is just like them, and they want to know that the solution is possible because someone just like them was able to make those accomplishments. So we're trying to make ourselves very relatable. When people see somebody who's successful, it's very easy for us to put them up on a pedestal. It's very easy to see somebody who has the things we want and go, oh, well, they have that because they're super smart, or, they grew up having a lot of money in their family, or, they have a natural talent. Like, it's very easy for us as human beings to just make those justifications to ourselves so that we don't feel bad about not being where that person is. So the thing that you want to do when you're answering these questions is think, what is making you the most relatable to your audience, and how take yourself off that pedestal. Like, don't let them put you there, because when they see themselves in you, you're an example of the success that they're about to have with your product. So when you put yourself in their shoes and they see that, it's a lot easier for them to envision themselves in your position. So the first thing is, how did you get started? So you want to talk about the type of struggles you had that likely your customers are currently experiencing, what goals you were trying to achieve, and also what kind of obstacles were actually in your way as you try to achieve these things. And then number 8 is obviously where you are now, what goals you were able to achieve and how you achieved them, and what resources did you have that achieve your goal. And the question that I really want you guys to focus in on for a moment is what resources you had that helped you achieve your goal. This is what I'm sure you guys have heard called the aha moment, the thing that the grand miracle that happened that completely changed things around. This is a huge part of sales copy, and when you're writing, especially in a long form sales letter, this is where the tables turn, where things weren't working out and now they are. And it's really important with this, going along the lines of what I was saying with humanizing yourself, that your customer feels that they're capable of that same solution. So you want to make it seem essentially like you stumbled on the solution, not, it didn't happen to you because you happened to get lucky necessarily. It happened in a way that is very achievable for others. So it's something you definitely want to be thinking about when you talk about the resources that help you actually get to where you want to be.
Yeah, that definitely does help. And it's something that, I follow and I do all the time, especially for people who, don't know you in a certain setting. And sometimes it sounds really cheesy. Like, we always talk about like the cheesy copywriting stuff here in office hours.
Yeah.
But like, I was once just like you. Like, I mean, I'm never cheesy. I never want to sound like that. But, like when you really you're sincere and you put yourself in the shoes of a person who is, either, struggling or experiencing a problem, or, and going this way and that way until you figured it out, that's your story. And everyone who has figured something out and is successful, there's always a story behind that. There's always a journey behind that. So, you need to make that relevant and known to the people that you are selling to, because that will make you just as ordinary as they are. And and like Kayla said, like it will make them think, or in their minds, that they can actually achieve what you've achieved.
Yeah, definitely. No, you're so right. And I mean, I think the thing with storytelling is that, and I'm not trying to poop on the hype train that I know kind of goes around. Um, it's totally up to your style and how you do this. But when you are writing, you don't have to. I know for me personally, I'm not comfortable writing in an overly hypey sense. It doesn't come naturally to me, and I feel like if I tried to write that way, it would come across to the readers that, what's the word I'm looking for that's nice? It would seem that I'm faking it, and I feel like I would risk building that trust with them that I'm trying really hard to portray in my writing.
Mm-hmm.
For some people it works, and for some products and some markets it works. So I'm not at all trying to say it's bad, but I think a lot of people think they have to be that way, and you don't. just write in the way that's natural to you. And when you do that, it's going to read very well with your buyers, and it's going to help build that trust as you tell your story. So that's definitely something that's hugely, hugely important. And last and final piece of our blueprint is all about the product. So these are pretty straightforward. This is more kind of organizing your information in one place so you can see it all together. So, how does your product solve the target's problem? So again, you're going to reference all the questions that you've already answered about what they're kind of struggling. So you want to write down specifically in what ways your product is actually going to help them achieve the goal that they're trying to get to. Another thing you want to consider is any competitor or alternative solutions, what advantages they have, what disadvantages they have. When I bring this up, this doesn't necessarily mean to crap on your competitors. We're not trying to do that in your sales copy, but it is very good to be aware of these things and what's going on in your market to give you a really good idea to show your strengths when you're selling your sales copy. 11 is extremely critical. It's your features and benefits. I don't want to dive too heavily into this because we actually did cover this on a past session. I believe it was the emotional selling one. So that information's already out there for you guys, but just a brief overview. Your benefit is basically how does it affect the end user, and why, and an advantage is why the feature is necessary. So, just because something benefits them doesn't necessarily mean that it's necessary in their life. Brighter headlights on my car, that's an advantage, but they're necessary because they may help save my life if a deer or a moose or something runs out in front of my car. That's the advantage of having them. So you definitely want to be thinking in that way when you're going through your key features. 12 is just gathering up any social proof you may have. 13 is price justification, so the value of your product and what makes it worth the price that you're charging. 14, your price and scarcity. Is the price going to increase? Is there limited availability? Do you only have so many copies to sell, or is the offer closing? All the things that you want to be thinking about before you jump into the next step. Then, of course, you want to outline your money-back guarantee and any sort of conditions that you may have. So that sums up our blueprint, and I am going to give you guys a copy of this inside the replay blog post, so you guys will have access to this as well. So I hope that gives a pretty good understanding of it. Debbie, did you have any questions or anything that maybe I should address before we move on?
No, I was just looking at this, and we've done an office hour session on almost all of these product questions. So definitely, we did breeze through this today because it's kind of like it's stuff that we've already covered. So just again, if this is anybody's first time inside of office hours, the way that you access the past training is if you go to scriptall.net, and then on the right hand side there's you'll see that one of the categories is office hours, so you'll see the past sessions that we have done. So and we've covered a lot of these in really great detail.
Yeah. No, definitely. So we don't want to dive, but maybe actually, Debbie, if you want to put a link.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then that way everyone.
Well, we don't want people going there now, so maybe at the end.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. So we'll get you guys hooked up with that if you want to dive a little bit more in depth. I don't want you to think I'm rushing through. I just don't want to be redundant. So next up is how we create a powerful sales letter by answering questions. So this is the part where we're actually going to dive into Scriptall. Like I said, if you're not a Scriptall user, don't worry. This is still going to be extremely valuable to you to see how this works and how this shapes up when you're organizing this information. Before I dive into it, I actually put this slide more so for my benefit, so I didn't forget to tell you guys. As we're going through these questions, when you see a question that asks about you, quotations, you, I'm doing the fake air quotations like somebody can see me right now, so I probably look like a fool. But when you see you in a question, it's referring to your customer. When you see a question that says I, it's going to refer to actually you and your own experience. This is going to make more sense when we get to the question. I just wanted to make sure I clarified that before we jump in. All right. everyone see that okay?
Yep, looks good.
Good? Okay. All right, so this, if you are a Scriptall user, you've probably seen this before, and if not, like I said, this is going to be lots of fun for you because you're going to get access to all the questions that we ask. So basically, this walkthrough, we've designed this so that we ask specific questions, and these specific questions actually um, relate back a lot to the mind map. So what I'm going to do with you guys is I'm going to walk you through each question and give you a good idea on how to answer them, but I'm actually also going to reference which question in the mind map that they're referring to. So if you guys want to grab a quick pen and paper, I would highly recommend writing it down. If you don't want to write it down right now, you'll be able to do so in the replay. So don't worry. But yeah, so I'm going to go through, like I said, I'll reference which question. So that way, after you've done all your research, you're going to know exactly where to pull the information from the mind map that you've already completed. So the first page that we're looking at here is the demographic information. So this is all stuff that you will have pulled from question 1 on the blueprint. This is just kind of who they are, their age, any kind of demographic information that has to do with your process. This is pretty basic, so I'm not going to dive too much into this because there's a lot of drop downs and only so many answers you can give. So that's the first page. Like I said, question 1 is where that comes from. And then we get into the first part. Okay, I'm going to just stop it right there. All right, so with this one, the name of the person talking and your experience level is going to come from the who are you questions. These are pretty basic. There wasn't actually a specific question to ask for these ones, so these ones are all pretty basic. Your product name and product type, again, this is going to come from your product information. When you get to the main goal question here, that's going to refer to question number 2 from the mind map, and the specific end result is going to be pulled from question number 8 on the mind map. So with the main goal question, what we're basically asking is, like we talked about before, is what is the main thing that your customer wants to achieve? This is a little bit more generalized because, as you can see in a second, that we're going to talk about a specific result that's going to happen. So this is just an overall, the general goal that they're looking to achieve. This particular profile, just so you guys know, is actually for a profile that we completed for an offline niche. So this is for a plumbing service. Another thing that I want you guys to see as well, for those of you that are Scriptall users, is you have full control over dictating what happens in the template. So when you answer these questions, you can design the template for any niche that you're working in. We get a lot of questions from people looking for specific templates for a specific niche when you don't actually need that. You have full control over it by the way you answer these questions. So we actually chose this example, Debbie and I, specifically to show you guys how you can relate this even to an offline local business if you're working in that area and doing promotions for maybe some offline clients or something. So yeah, so the main goal is just, like I said, just an overgeneralized summation of what the goal is. You want to be very careful when you're answering these questions to not use any sort of possessive words because it's going to read funny when you get it inside the template. So that's the main thing you want to focus on there. The specific end result is something that you've specifically achieved with your product. So this is now, as you can see, because this question is saying I, this is now something talking about yourself and something that you've actually achieved. So I think that that's pretty. Do you want to add anything to that, Debbie, before I jump into the next one? I don't want to beating everybody's head against the wall repeating myself, so I just want to
I mean, I think that this is really important because, you know, when you sit down and it's blank, you like you know, just share with people like what goes through your mind when you're like writing these, you know, different, like the main goal and the specific end result.
Sorry, what was that again?
Like, what goes through your, like, what do you think of? Like, so when you're sitting down to kind of just like write these, right? Like, you know, because for me, I'm like, sometimes it's like you're just sitting there and you have to think of something, right? And it's just a blank thing. So what I want to do is just help people like say, like, you know, what exactly are you thinking of when you're actually sitting down to write, like, for example, like a specific end result?
Well, this would be like the exact results that you've achieved. So if I have a product that, let's go back to the dog barking example. So if I have a product that's going to help a dog stop barking, my generalized main goal is going to be because you will be able to stop your dog from incessant barking. Specifically, I was able to um, get my dog to stop barking and within a week or something like that. Like
Or like when somebody comes over or things like that, like just
yeah,
getting more into like the specific issue.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, exactly. You're just diving in a little bit deeper, making it a little bit um, more. I keep saying specific. I wish I had a
You're
bigger.
kind of like painting a picture too, like just getting down to the actual issue that people really, really want to solve.
Right, exactly. And this is maybe even like a domino issue, like we were talking about a lot as well. So something that's happening as a result of the dog barking. So specifically, I was able to convince my husband that we didn't need to get rid of the dog because he was barking too much, like
Right, right,
something
right.
like that, like just bringing it down even further and digging in a little bit deeper. That's what the specific end result is asking you to fill
Also,
out.
like it sounds a little bit like it also incorporates emotion too, right? Because you
Yes.
kind of want to have people like feel like, oh, thank God, like the dog, we can keep the dog, right?
Yeah.
Like thank
That's
God my water, isn't yellow anymore. Like that's disgusting. So it that's a good way of doing it actually. Like thinking about the emotion that people feel when they read it.
yeah, definitely. And then that jumps into the next question, which is the time frame. So how long did it take you to get this actual result that you're claiming to have got? So um, these ones are a little bit easier, as you can see, because they're a lot more specific. So getting into struggle. So I'm just going to go ahead and, like last time, I'm just going to specifically outline which questions from the mind map, and then I'll jump back in and re-explain kind of better how to answer them. So your first one, your struggle, that's going to come from question number 3 from the mind map. What's not working is going to come from question number 4 from the mind map. And finally, the alternative solutions is going to come from question number 10 on the mind map. So hopefully you guys write those down. And so the first thing is, what is the person currently struggling with? So what's going on and what's stopping them from being able to solve the problem? So this specific profile is promoting an offline plumbing service. So the customer is having a hard time finding a plumbing solution that's mainly budget conscious, because they may not want to pay a fortune to have a plumber come in and fix it. So that's the problem that's kind of brewing right now and giving them a hard time. And the next thing that you want to consider is what's not working and what has your customer already tried. So they've got a drainage issue in their home. What have they already tried to try to solve the problem that they're having? So, they're looking for a budget conscious solution. Um, so how else could they achieve that? Well, they could have tried to hire a plumber, um, but they found out that it was really expensive. They could have tried to do DIY repairs, and if anybody here has done DIY repairs, I'm sure you know how disastrous those can be. And then it resulted in, a huge hassle because you didn't have the tools, whatever. Finally, they might have invested in just a quick fix solution, which just made the issue keep happening. So essentially, this question is, the first thing is you're going to fill out is the action that they've taken. The second question is asking what the result of that action was. And generally that's going to be poor, because it hasn't worked out for them yet. And then finally, we're going to talk about alternative solutions. So if your solution that you're presenting them wasn't an option, what else could they do? And what approximately could it cost them? So um, this person could run a trial and error test until they found a reliable plumber. But obviously that's going to cost them a lot of headache and money. they could also try to invest time and money to educate themselves, which again, a lot of time and money. So these are alternative solutions that they could try but haven't tried yet. All right. And page 4. So this is all about the obstacles they're facing, the aha moment that we talked about, and also some accomplishments. So this is actually referring back to you now and your experience. So this is what's going to knock you off the pedestal and make you seem very relatable and humanize you so that they see themselves in you and hopefully see themselves in the solution that you're about to offer them as well. So with these questions, so the first one, obstacles, that's going to come from your answer from question number 7 on the mind map. The aha moment is going to come from question number 8 on the mind map. And the final question about accomplishments is going to come from question number 8 as well as question number 6. That's going to pull from both of those options. So with the first question with obstacles, you're going to talk about the things that basically stood in your way and prevented you from being able to reach out and find a solution. So in this quick case, they didn't have any proper tools, they didn't know how to execute the solution, and they were worried that they were going to make their home worse if they even tried to do anything. And then just to kind of illustrate, to go back to the mind map example of the weight loss, so they didn't have the time to go to the gym, they didn't have daycare to watch over their kids, and they were afraid they would embarrass themselves on the weightlifting equipment if they went into the weight room, because I'm sure any of us that have gone to the gym know how intimidating the weight room can be when you don't know what you're doing. So those are the things that you want to consider, and that's how you're going to ask those. And what's nice about this option is it's very leading into the question. So as you can see, you've already got some options here for how to actually finish the sentence. So that makes this very, very simple to use. And then next is our aha moment. So this is basically how you, again, stumbled on the solution. What happened to you that hasn't maybe happened to them yet, and how could they find that solution? Yeah, and like I said before, sorry guys, I'm getting a little wrapped up. This is where you want to show how they can find the solution, and then that's going to be the turning point in your sales copy where it was, oh, poor me, this was happening to me and I couldn't fix it, and then all of a sudden things are getting better. So this is that turnkey moment that's going to make that a lot better. And then finally, it's your accomplishment. So this is going to come from where we asked where the customer sees themselves. So this is how you describe, this is what I mean when you describe their life as it is once they have the solution. So going to the gym, so they may have more energy, they're not fighting with their boss because they're more productive. All those things that we just talked about, that's where you're going to fill in the accomplishments. And like I said, don't be afraid to reach here. These are all the things that they're now able to do as a result of solving the problem. And you want to make these as desirable as possible, and that's why I say don't be afraid to reach. Because by showing them what a negative impact the problem has in their life, they're more likely to take action on the problem. So you want to make the accomplishments sound really, really good and give a really good, broad understanding of how it actually affects their lives. And then next up we have our features and benefits. So this all comes from question number 11 on the mind map. And essentially with this section, the product will help you achieve your goal because it has. This question is designed to list out the features. So when you're actually answering the question about your product and you're listing off all the features that your product has, these are the actual features or characteristics that the product has in these slots here, and that's how you're going to fill those out, which is good for you because, and then you're going to answer basically how is it going to positively affect their lives, and then why is it necessary. So this particular offer, this service gives out drain and pipe repairs. It's good for them because when a pipe leaks, it can cause extensive damage and even worse, mold. I'll identify the source of the issue and then fix it to prevent water damage in your home. So that's a consequence. So the benefit is that it'll stop any damage, and then it'll help any further damage is the advantage of that. So I think that's pretty What
Yeah,
else?
and like what I really like about this part is like I know that, a lot of like inexperienced copywriters, and we talked about this a lot, Kayla and I, they tend to just, or struggle on this part, like the bullet part or the features and benefits part, because you tend to write like just the feature and you forget to leave out to include the benefit. Like, that's a really, really common problem, and I've made that mistake hundreds of times before, we started getting into really like describing features, what's a feature, what's a benefit, and what's an advantage. And this actually forces you, Scriptall actually forces you to write the benefit because of just the way that the question is structured, which is good for you because you're literally answering the question, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of reminds you that you need to write, oh, why is this feature good for somebody, and not just write the feature, because just writing the feature alone is not going to convince somebody that they need your product. And that's a huge, huge issue. Like a feature like, oh, this car has beeps when somebody is walking behind your car, right? When you're going in reverse. That's just a feature, but it's good for you because you're going to know if you don't see that person, you're going to automatically know that you need to stop because it's beeping and you're not going to hurt somebody, right? So, I know I'm kind of harping on this, but this is a huge, huge issue with people who don't really understand um, the level that you really need to go when you are describing what your product does.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you're right, Debbie. It's such a common mistake for people to just list out the features that their product has, and then they assume that people will just happen to know why it's good for them.
Right.
You assume things, it doesn't always lead to good results. So yeah, definitely like this by structuring it in such a way to ask these questions, it is forcing you to outline the benefit and the advantage, and get you thinking that way. So I'm hoping you guys are starting to see how the research component and these questions really come together because it's basically forcing you so you can't mess it up. It gets you in the right train of thought. It gets you looking at the right information that you need to be thinking about. And then when you get to filling out the profile, it helps you really organize all that information a little bit easier, as well. So I think it all, like I said, it just streamlines the process a lot easier for you, to make sure that you're relating to your customers and triggering all the things that are going to motivate them to actually make the purchase. So there's that, and then the next thing is the bonuses, and this is set up much in the same way that the features and benefits is. So you list off the actual name of the bonus, and the question is, and it strengthens the main offer because it will help you. And the reason that this is worded this way is because a lot of people miss out on connecting how the bonus actually helps the initial offer. Um, in order for your customers to see bonuses as a value, they need to understand why they need the bonus. Because if you're just slapping on bonuses just to, try to make it look good, then you're just value pumping and you're not necessarily providing any actual value. So the reason that these questions are structured this way is because it actually forces you to explain how it strengthens it. And by us forcing you to explain it, it's going to give a much stronger argument when your customer is reading the sales copy and seeing, um, how much they're actually getting, how much value they're actually getting from your product. And this is going to help motivate the sale as well. So um, this is going to refer essentially to question 11 as well, except instead of your front end product, you're going to answer those questions about the bonuses that you're providing. And then we get into guarantee and testimonials. These are pretty straightforward. So your guarantee is just, how long you're offering the guarantee for, and then you can easily fill in a few testimonials here as well by just putting in the name and then copying the person's testimonial in. These are always really great to have because it's a lot more effective when someone else says you're awesome than when you're just saying you're awesome. So, um, So yeah, so that just kind of makes that pretty easy. I'm not going to dive too much into that because I think it's pretty self-explanatory how to fill those out. And then finally, we get to our scarcity and call to action. So these are going to refer to question number 14 on the mind map. And so whenever you're giving scarcity, it's really good to give them a reason so they just don't think you're just trying to push them into a purchase. Like give them a legitimate reason why you're closing the offer or offering any sort of scarcity. So in this case, for our plumber example, the reason that they only have so much availability is because obviously as a plumber, you only have so many hours in a day to go out and fix any issues with your clients. So that one's a pretty easy one. But yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you're giving them a reason why. Um, and all these things, they seem really minute, but they actually help build trust when you're straightforward and very forthcoming with all your reasonings for things. It's going to help the customer feel like they can trust you because you're actually giving them legitimate reasons and backing up what you say, and you're not just trying to hype them into pushing the buy button. And then finally, you finish off with a call to action, which I don't know how people miss this, but it happens. So this is to make sure that you let them know what action they need to take next. And this is really important. Never give people the benefit of the doubt that they just know. Same with the features and benefits. Make sure that you spell it out for them what they need to do next. This being an offline, you would probably provide a phone number for them to call. You can also obviously select a download or click here or click the buy button. There's different options there. And then finally, this is the easy part. All you have to do is fill out your information. So that pretty much sums up our profile overview. And again, I hope you guys can see how this all ties together. So I'm sure us explaining it does seem like a lot of work. I'm not saying it's not work, but I'm also not saying that it's not beneficial as well. It's definitely beneficial. And by taking the time to actually do the research component, it's going to make it a whole heck of a lot easier when you get to filling out the profiles. And hopefully you guys kind of wrote down which questions go with which ones, because that's going to also make your life easier, because then you're going to know where to fill in the information that you've researched, and if not, we will have it in the replay. So that pretty much ties up everything that I've got for you guys today. Do you guys have any questions? Now's the time. Debbie, did you want to throw anything in before we get to questions?
No, I thought it was great. And, the reason why we put this together is because, it's one thing that you have the scripts, but it all really starts with your profile. And obviously there is only so much a templated profile can do for you. And there are things that you have to know specifically about your product or your service that you do that is different from other services and other products out there. And these are the exact things that you have to be thinking about when you're actually filling out the information inside of Scriptall. Now, obviously, if you're not using Scriptall, then it's still the same, things that you have to do. It's just that Scriptall makes it a little bit easier because it outlines everything, and it makes sure that you don't leave out any important components of your copy that really need to be there to sell your product and service. So that's why we thought that this was a really, really crucial step that we wanted to kind of fill in the gap so that you have a full picture of how to use everything inside of the platform, the Scriptall platform.
Definitely. Do you mind popping that link in the chat box for them now, Debbie, so they can access all the office hours videos? Because the office hours videos are actually on our blog. So we'll get you guys a link inside the chat box so you can go and watch some of our past ones. And I definitely recommend you guys do that. We've covered a lot. We've covered a lot, Debbie. We've been nerding out hardcore on these. So.
We have. Yeah, so if you go to scriptall.net, you're going to see at the top, it says blog. Just click blog. And then on the right-hand side, you're going to see the categories. And one of them is going to be office hours. And if you click on that, that's where all of our past office hour sessions have been placed.
Getting lots of compliments. You guys are awesome. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this content. I know that when I first started copywriting this stuff, would have definitely helped me a lot because it's definitely a lot of trial and error. And I mean, it's always that process, anyways. But definitely when you can redirect your thinking to the right places, it can help you a ton with your sales copy, and that's a lot of the battle right there. The writing part actually becomes a lot easier when you do all this stuff that seems like it's just kind of grunt work. This actually makes the writing process a whole heck of a lot easier, because you don't have to think about it so much. You already pretty much know what to write, and copywriting is all it's a lot about storytelling as well, like Debbie was talking about earlier. So when you have all this and you know what story you're telling, it becomes a heck of a lot easier. So I'm really, really glad that you guys are finding these helpful.
Awesome. All right. So that definitely, unless anybody has, thank you guys for the compliments. That's awesome that you guys liked it. This one was a really good session. Because it just filled in that gap, I think, that that you need to kind of complete the circle, because a template, profile, whatever it is, a script, it's nothing without that core information that you need about your products. And it's really about dialing back, and then just honing in on those questions, those struggles, and again, knowing your audience better than they know themselves, so that you can, when your copy will actually get people physically feeling that they need to fix whatever problem that they're going through, right? Because essentially we're solving problems, whatever it is. We're selling products, we're selling services to solve problems. And are you going to be the person that solves the problem, or are they going to go somewhere else? And this core training right here is going to make people pick you over another product or service. So looks like all the questions are kind of, they've come in and we're getting a lot of compliments. Thank you guys so much. You're awesome too. And
Just
also,
sorry. I was just going to let you guys know the mind map is going to be in the blog post as well, so you guys will have access to those questions. And yeah, use it. Take advantage of it. It seems like it's an extra step, but it'll be so worth it in the end, I promise. So
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thanks guys for hanging with us. We really enjoyed your company. Thanks, Kayla, for the awesome presentation today. You did great. And we love you guys. We'll see you on the next office hours. Okay.
bye, guys.
Bye.